Hi there, I am Sarah Jane Case, and I'm the host of your new favorite show, Enneagram and Coffee. This podcast is dedicated to discussing the beautiful and hard parts of being human. We discuss the Enneagram, a personality map that is taking over the world, for increased self-compassion, personal growth, and healthier relationships. Listen to Enneagram and Coffee on the iHeart app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk, a literary podcast where we deep dive into the writings of your favorite novels. This summer, we are hosting our romantasy edition of a book club while we prepare for our 15-part literary analysis of Sarah J. Maas's A House of Sky and Breath.
This is Jack.
And I'm Amy.
And each week we'll discuss one book from our summer book club roster. By using our literary background, we'll provide our first blush analysis of each book as we discuss listener thoughts.
This week, we're taking a break from our book club roster to discuss our listener thoughts about the upcoming House of Sky and Breath season, which airs August 2024.
So we put out a poll on Instagram. Not a poll, just like a question. So if you guys don't follow us on Instagram, like that's really where we get a lot of our thoughts.
You're missing out, really. So go follow us on Instagram.
Such a plug.
Shameless.
I know, right? But I do like this because like we are bad at our emails. Sorry guys, I do need to go back and respond. But it is nice to kind of get initial thoughts. And we haven't talked about the Crescent City world in a minute.
Yeah. So this will be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck remembering anything to Jack and I. We'll see what we can recall.
I believe the characters are called Bryce and Hunt, if I remember correctly.
Okay, that sounds vaguely familiar.
Very vague.
So folks, before we get started, there are going to be lots of spoilers. This is not going to be contained to Sky and Breath. It does have ACOTAR related spoilers, Throne of Glass related spoilers, and Flame and Shadow related spoilers. So listen at your own peril.
Yeah. Some listeners sent their feedback as a message versus a little box because they were like, I cannot be contained. And I'm like, who am I to contain you? You're right. Yeah. That's my fault. I never should have done that. So I'm going to read. So this is from, I don't know if we're supposed to say who it's from. Sorry if you guys wanted to be anonymous, but a listener.
I think we've read first names in the past.
Well, I'm going to do handles. Okay. And that's why I'm like, I never know if they want to be found. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm just going to do the first letter. This is from S. It should have been 2 books. The switch between searching for Emil and going into the Asteri Palace seemed too disconnected. Bryce felt like a side character in her own book, and spending so much time searching for Emil only for her to find him off page was weird and dissatisfying. It feels like Bryce is suddenly acting like Aelin, and it doesn't work well. Tharian and Ethan are the bane of my existence. Lastly, I always found the reveal of Regulus. Right, here we are back. It wouldn't be an episode if I didn't mispronounce something. Regulus pretending.
Rigulus.
Fuck. Oh, sorry, Mom. Rigulus. Why can't I say it? Rigulus.
You got it right.
Okay, Rigulus. Pretending to be Adis, very confusing. And like it didn't make sense. Looking forward to you dissecting it. These are valid.
They're all so valid. Also valid. We talked a lot in season 1 about Sky and Breath is going to make or break this series.
Yeah.
Because it's going to make or break the transition to Flame and Shadow.
Mm-hmm.
And I also remember Sky and Breath not being very tight by comparison to Earth and Blood.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a lot going on. I also always got confused about the Adis Rigulus trickery. I felt like I already had a hard time with the Hunt reveal in Earth and Blood initially. For SJM to have repeated that device of Bryce finding Emil off page and the reveal coming later. I understand the frustration because it's like, wait, why are we wasting our time?
Yeah.
And why are we not getting this information? Where were the clues? So I feel the frustration, and
Mhm.
I'm really kind of anxious to analyze it because I want to have faith that Sarah pulls it off, but I don't know if she does.
I feel like those seasons are always the most exciting for us because 'cause we're like, "I
Mm.
don't have faith in you," and then we find out being like, "I apologize, my dear overlord, I never meant to not have faith in you." I remember really liking Sky and Breath, and I don't know if that's because of just the ending, you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Also, people should know, spoilers, we're not here to save anything anymore, but the ending was what made it for me, and again, I don't know if that's me having rose-tinted glasses for the rest of the book, but,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
the Emile thing really bugged me. The other aspects, like, it was just, like, her hiding it from Hunt really bugged me.
Mhm.
When I was rereading it before, the 3rd book came out, I definitely there were some things where I'm like, "Oh, I actually can understand why she did that."
Yeah.
I think the difficulty is that SJM was introducing more point of views, and
Mhm.
you in order to do that, you have to lose some Bryce, and
Yeah.
the 1st book was Bryce, Hunt, Sprinkle of Rune.
Right.
And now you're getting a lot more other point of views, and especially since you need Bryce to be hiding things, and, you know, there's a lot of stuff that in this book, which I'm being so overly hopeful, but, here I am. I think the 2nd book responds to the trauma from the 1st book because we keep mentioning, right, during
Yeah.
Crescent City season saying, "Oh, you can see that there, you can see that there." And if we can make that link, then that means her actions justify what happens in the 3rd book, because I
Right.
think that she's very gun ho and very like, "I'm gonna do my own thing, I'm gonna need you to be a part of it,"
Mhm.
and that's her attitude for the 3rd book, so it's like, it's like, I'm hoping that's it, but the things
Yeah.
yeah, like, pretending to be cat daddy, that's not cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just too confusing because then I mean, at least for me, I forget that we're supposed to trust Adis when we see him in Flame and Shadow.
Yeah.
Because I forgot that Rigelus was pretending to be him because it wasn't quite clear. It's a lot. A lot happens.
Mhm.
I also want to go back to what the listener was saying. S,
Yeah.
correct? S. Uh, that Bryce felt very alien, and I think that has to do with what you were saying about all the points of view that are being
Mhm.
introduced. This is more like Throne of Glass with many POVs in the third person
Yeah.
narrative. We don't see as much as of our protagonist, which obviously is intentional if Bryce is keeping a bunch of secrets. However, I don't know that's what people came for
Yeah.
when they got to Sky and Breath,
Yep.
right? And that I can see why it can be frustrating, especially with Therian and Ethan, because they're just as frustrating, if not more frustrating, in Flame and Shadow.
I mean, I was frustrated with Throne of Glass, I remember. Like, I don't remember much from my read from Throne of Glass, but I do remember feeling frustrated of like, "Wait a minute, I wanted Aelin. I liked her. Like, I don't wanna read all these other
Mm-hmm.
characters." And I that was, like, the first book I think I did that many multiple point of views, and I didn't like it. Now I do.
Yeah.
Now I'm, like, more into those types of books, but, now you're making me be invested in other storylines that I had
Mm-hmm.
I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to
Right.
deal with Ethan and Therian and all that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's funny because I think, like, Therian, because it is very his ends up being a marriage of good convenience trope. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping. Ethan, dead to me.
But that's from Flame and Shadow, right? That's not necessarily
Who
from Sky
knows?
and Breath.
Who knows?
We'll see.
We'll see. Let's see if he can earn being alive here,
Okay.
and then we can go into whether he's worth me feeling invested in him in the 3rd book.
All right. Okay, this next comment is from A, and they cannot be contained. It is 3 text messages, so
I That's also why I left it to you to read.
Oh, thanks, thanks,
I
thanks.
have more faith in your reading aloud abilities.
All right, here we go. HOSAP thoughts. Too long for the little text box provided. It's very good, but I think it tends to overshadow Earth and Blood only because of the cliffhanger, which is the most epic cliffhanger of all time. But while I think that Earth and Blood could be a standalone and is actually my number 2 of all of SJM's books, I think Sky and Breath is a little meandering. Everything ends up worth it in the end, but I always feel like Sky and Breath is the long walk before the drink of water. It's all necessary. SJM doesn't do anything on accident, but it can't stand alone. I do, however, think that Crescent City might be her tightest series. She does not waste a single moment in this series so far, which I think is partially the reason some people don't like it. It's fast and furious and can be a little hard to keep up with, but if you like complex world building, which I do, then you like Crescent City. Also, I'm still convinced Cormac isn't dead. That's my one wild fan theory I stick by. I think his tattoos were word marks and he took a portal out of there. And also that the Illyrian tattoos are word marks. I did a whole 20-slide presentation for my friends for our book club on the connections between the 3 series, and I was mostly right on everything once Flame and Shadow came out. Okay, I'm done.
That's incredible. I didn't think I forgot that they were totally ward marks, and it makes sense that he would, bounce and get out of there. What if in the next ACOTAR book we see him?
I think he's dead. Let's not speculate on that. Let's go back to what A was saying about the cliffhanger overshadowing the meandering of Sky and Breath, which I think goes back to what you were saying before. The cliffhanger is so epic, and that's all we focused on
Mhm.
after we finished Sky and Breath, that we immediately started thinking about Flame and Shadow for 2 years until it came out.
Yeah, yeah.
And there wasn't a lot of time spent reflecting on the actual content of Sky and Breath. I agree. Sarah does everything intentionally. There's no page wasted,
Mhm.
but I do remember struggling with how much meandering there is.
Yeah.
Unlike Earth and Blood, where the payoff felt really strong,
Mhm.
there was no real payoff to what was happening for me in Sky and Breath.
Yeah, I mean, her payoff is dependent on the 3rd book.
Right.
The thing when it comes to first books is that you do need to have it tightly wrapped up enough to say like, "Hey reader, be into the first book. Like get into this series." So there's enough of a cliffhanger so that they want to know more, but at the same time, it kind of needs to be like a nice little standalone in a way
Yeah.
where you're getting everything you need, because the second book is always just kind of like the thing to get you to the third book.
Right.
Think about Mist and Fury. Mist and Fury, I love. Like, it's one of my favorites. However, you do see where it's leaving off for Wings and Ruin. Like, it's a lot of
Right.
buildup for Wings and Ruin. All the politics, all of the
Mhm.
queens and everything like that is for the third book. So that's like the tricky thing when it comes to second books is I don't think they get to be wrapped up enough like the first book. And
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm just saying it's difficult, and in this book, maybe SJM did fall into the trap of the second book.
Yeah, so that's a curious statement. Let me think about all of SJM's books, second books. Okay, so Mist and Fury, Sky and Breath. What was the second book in Throne of Glass?
Throne of Glass 2.
Darn it. It's Air of Fire's the third. What is the second?
I'll Goodreads it while you go through this journey.
So the reason why I bring this up is because all of SJM's second books end on a cliffhanger,
Mhm.
right? In Throne of Glass, Aelin's friend is killed and she leaves for the Fae Kingdom
Yeah.
to learn about her power. She's basically exiled.
Crown of Midnight.
Crown of Midnight, thank you. Crown of Midnight, her friend is killed. She's exiled. She goes to learn about her power. And it's just as she's leaving,
Mhm.
right? Mist and Fury, her sisters are turned into Fae, and she goes and infiltrates
Yeah.
the Spring Court. Sky and Breath, they fail to infiltrate the Asteri Palace. They learn the big secret about the Asteri, and
Mhm.
then Bryce ends up in Prythian. So this is kind of par for the course, if we think about it, for the way SJM ends her second books. And I'm not complaining about the end of the second
It's the
book.
middle part to get you
It's
there.
the middle part,
Yeah.
right? She is good at keeping people around for the third book.
Mhm.
You wanna know what happens in the next book. But does that justify the way she handles the middle of the second book?
So when you think about Mist and Fury, and you're gonna have to speak to Throne of Glass because I have no memory of it, But
Mm-hmm.
when I think about Mist and Fury, we have Feyre and Rhys falling in love, and that's what
Right.
keeps you in for the second book, because all of her second books are build up to the end, right? They're all build up to the climax. So even though you have um like the whole thing with the queens and like, Lucian popping up and Tamlin losing it, like those are all happening in the background. They're
Mm-hmm.
important. They're getting you to the end of the book, but the love story is kind of like the big thing that's like distracting you. It's
Yeah.
hard because in Crescent City, we know they like each other, we know they love each other, and it's
Right.
just a matter of, like, when are they gonna finally sleep together, and there's
Yeah.
really nothing at stake that keeps you hungry for the middle part,
Right.
and I can't
Yeah.
remember Crown of Midnight, so I'm guessing something similar.
Crown of Midnight, Aelin has broken up with Dorian
Mm.
at the end of Throne of Glass, and she and Kale are basically starting to fall in love.
Oh, see? Another love like, falling in love thing.
And then their relationship ends at the end of Crown of Midnight because of what Aelin views as
Yeah.
Kale's betrayal and the death of her friend.
Yeah. SJM kinda set it up in a more difficult way because it's not like they're falling in love for the first
Mhm.
time, like, she spent the entire first book having us, like, love these 2 characters loving each other, and that's why I think she kinda had to, like, fill up the space with other things involved, like night and day and
Mhm.
with
Uh,
yeah.
I was gonna say night and day is what keeps me around.
Yeah,
Their relationship is what keeps me around.
exactly. So, I almost wish there was more time spent on that one because
Mhm.
in the second time I reread it, I'm like, "That goes by really fast." Like, you
Yeah.
guys falling in love, like, after 3 encounters,
Yeah.
who am I to judge? But I've never met a hot night man, uh,
In your
in my
dreams.
dreams before. So, like, there's elements that SJM is really good at, which is, like, having people fall in love, which keeps us around for the second book.
Mhm.
She didn't explore that as much. I think she was trying to go for more plot,
Yeah.
which might cause the meandering and stuff. That's that's just from what I remember. This is me guessing. We'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, when we actually start recording.
I know, which will be soon. Okay, so here's kind of similar sentiments, but a little bit different. This is from another listener. S again, I don't know if whether to use your usernames, guys. I don't want anyone's identity to be revealed. Anyway, genuinely one of my favorite SJM books. The character development and scene setting were top tier and obviously the best cliffhanger I've ever left with. It literally had me screaming in my apartment. Interesting with the character development because that's going to be a hell of a one to analyze.
Yeah, yeah, because when I think about it and think about whose character is being
Mhm.
developed, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say the most character development comes up from Rune.
Probably, yeah, yeah.
And then maybe there's a little bit of character development from Ethan.
I'm also going to say that Bryce might have one of the most character development because she goes from end of Sky and Breath, where she is so loyal to Danica and so loyal to Hunt,
Mhm.
and she ends up being loyal to the cause
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
so than the people in her life. So,
Yeah.
like, that has to have and that's I think why people are so like, what happened is,
Mhm.
like, she went from, like, "I love you, Hunt, I'm gonna die for you," to "Get on or get off, I'm gonna keep doing
Yeah.
this." So, there
Yeah.
must be something in the middle that's the middle part that we're gonna have to analyze and be like, "What
Right.
happened here to get you from A to B?"
Yeah. And maybe that's why it meanders is so much is because she does end Earth and Blood with, we can't change anything. I just want to hide in a hole with Hunt
Mhm.
and just live out the rest of our years in quiet and
Yeah,
peace.
yeah,
Fuck the Asteri. We don't let's not upset them.
yep.
Two, at the end being like, fuck you.
Yeah.
We need to go fuck the Asteri.
Yeah, because
Like
that's a hell
w-
of a jump.
that is a hell of a jump.
So,
So
we have to see if SJM earns it,
yeah, yeah. Which I'm sure by the end of it, I'm gonna be like, "Yeah, mad respect, she earned it."
right? I
But in
agree.
this moment, I have
We're
doubts.
dubious.
Dubious. That's a great word.
Dubious. Now we're going to read the comments from people who did fill in the box. No shade to anyone who did or did not fill in the box. This is from Jay. Obsessed with the frat party at the start of the book.
Oh, I forgot that that's what it is.
That's when Rune Dannon only knew
Yeah.
2 things. Our boy knew things, and he knew enough.
He knew enough. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
How could I forget that?
I know, right? I do think that it's a great way of setting the scene of, like, he didn't grow too much from the first book.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yep.
Like, it's kind of like
Yep.
you can tell there was, like, a regression there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's true, which again is why I think he's probably among the most
Developed, yeah.
developed by the end, because he's a completely different person in Flame and Shadow.
By the third book, he's like, I will be your stepfather. I am your new daddy now.
Call me daddy for different reasons.
Amen to that.
This one is from D. I couldn't get invested in Bryson Hunt's relationship. Loved it in Earth and Blood. Bored in Sky and Breath.
Because things weren't at stake.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. It's really hard where SJM did the mature thing at the start of the book, where Bryce was saying, hey, I want to make sure that we're actually in love and it wasn't life and death. That's a very mature thing to do. That's like the type of thing that if we were doing analysis and she didn't do that, it'd be like, hey, trauma bond.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I also get why she did it, because it's trying to, like, bring back the tension.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's some good tension. It does make me understand why people leave off on breakups.
Yeah, I do understand how, from maybe a writing perspective and from a reading perspective, readers are like, I'm so bored. Like,
just have sex already.
Yeah, like, or fight some more so that I have some angst or something. But what I like about Bryson Hunt's relationship, at least from this standpoint, having not analyzed it in Sky and Breath, is the fact that SJM is trying to subvert her usual patterns.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because a lot of people did expect Bryson Hunt to not be Endgame.
Yep.
Because
all the way to the third book. People still...
All the way to the third book. So I do appreciate that for once, you know, we have a older female protagonist who is approaching relationships maturely and taking her time, which is not the case for Aelin and Feyre.
Yeah. It just sucks that by doing that, you take away the interesting parts of a book, you know, where the tension and the build-up. And I think I can't remember, like, the context of what I say it, but I, like, tell, like, I'll, like, say something to you and be like, I don't want to be a book heroine, because I feel like I would be like, let's talk. Like, nothing would be interesting if I was a heroine in a book. It'd be like, all right, well, this ended in chapter 2. Like,
we had a conversation.
Yeah, we had a conversation, and that everything was resolved. So it's hard, because she did do the emotionally intelligent thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we have to add other point of views, because it's not as intense.
Right. And this is no shame to anybody, but does that make us toxic for wanting, you know, our heroine to have problems and for more to be at stake in her relationship? Maybe.
Does it make you and I specifically toxic? Because if she did that, we would rip it apart and be mad at it. And
yeah. True. True.
You can't make us happy no matter what you do.
Yeah, but I do look forward to analyzing the relationship, because I think there are going to be nuances that we don't pick up on in a quick read.
Yeah.
And those nuances do have impact on Flame and Shadow.
I mean, it's the same way. I mean, now I'm like, again, I'm thinking about it, where it's like Cormac was introduced to be like the love rival, but then they got rid of that so quickly. Yeah, I think SJM was definitely trying to go against the grain when it comes to Hunt's and Bryce's relationship. So
yeah,
well, in our analysis, we'll see if it pans out.
Yeah, and I mean, I appreciate the effort, if nothing else.
Yeah. All right, this one comes from A. I love how it was off to the races ASAP, and the mystery hooked me right away.
Oh, that's great.
Good job. Yay!
I mean, it is intriguing to start with Sophie Renast and
Oh, right, I
what you were
forgot about how it started. I was too busy trying
yeah,
to remember.
and Sophie trying to liberate her brother
Yeah.
and other children, and then Sophie potentially being killed, and that question being, suspended
Yeah.
over our head for a long period of time. I do think that that's a great way to grip
Mhm.
readers, and sad to say, I'm glad she killed Sophie Renast
Agreed,
in
I
the
was thinking
end.
about that, she should have been dead.
Yeah, and which she was,
Yeah.
and I think that that was the right choice,
Mhm.
and it adds grief for the reader who's been holding out as long as Cormac has
Yeah.
to be like, "Is she alive?"
Like, but maybe she did live. Maybe there's these
Yeah,
moments that she could have. Yeah, that was a great mystery, and then you have that entwined with Where's Emil?
yeah, yeah,
Another kind of hit the ground running, let's get this going. SJM doesn't waste time of like, and here's where everyone is. It's like, we got mysteries to solve.
yeah, which is in line with Earth and Blood.
Yeah.
It's kind of a whodunit. This is kind of a whodunit and trying to uncover the secrets of the Asteria and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, whenever I describe Crescent City, and I was just talking to someone yesterday, trying to bully them to read Crescent City, and they're like, "Well, I don't know." And I was like, "Look, it's Zootopia. It's a buddy cop
Mhm.
situation because that's what it is. It is a buddy cop. Like it's two people
Yeah,
trying to solve a crime, and obviously there's like more to it, but that's what it is. And you're kind of going from that into, okay, well, what's the next thing that it is? That
yeah,
like, what's the next trope that it's going into? Again, I keep going back to comparing it to ACOTAR, where you have ACOTAR, that was the first book was Beauty and the Beast, right? Second book, Persephone in Hades.
yeah,
Like these are things
yeah,
that SJM knew what she was doing going into it.
yeah,
Same thing with the first book here, Crescent City. It's a buddy cop
yeah.
at its core, right? That's what's going on. I don't know if I can put my finger on what the second one is.
Yeah, it's I a search and rescue?
Like, and again, going into the Throne of Glass, like the first one, she's falling in love, right? And then the second one,
And
it's
it's a
like it's
competition.
competition. And then even in the second one, it's like falling in love with your ex-boyfriend's best friend. Like that's like a trope within itself, it's taboo, it's
Right.
not allowed. I can't tell you what this trope is for the second book for Crescent City.
I feel like she tried I mean, it's an espionage tale, right? If you think about Night and Day.
Yeah, yeah,
And if you think about the search for Sophie, the search for Emil,
yeah,
but yeah, it doesn't feel as well defined, I
yeah.
guess.
Which comes into the meandering question.
Yep.
Maybe we'll figure out the trope and the thing.
Yeah. Wait for the analysis.
Yeah, like future
We'll
us will
solve
figure it out. Future us will do it.
it. Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk. All right, so we have an Ethan comment from Kay. We really start getting hints for Ethan's future in this book, so Flame and Shadow isn't too surprising. That I agree with.
Yeah. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I'm going to say yeah. I believe it.
It's curious whether Ethan's point of view in Sky and Breath gives him positive points or negative points before we get to Flame and Shadow.
Mm-hmm.
And is he done dirty by Flame and Shadow, or was he done dirty early on in Sky and Breath?
So what I'm so excited about this analysis, and it's going to make our analysis like a lot, I don't know if it's going to make it better, but it's going to make it more interesting, I think, for us talking about it, is knowing that SJM rewrote the third book.
Yeah.
And she said that the key things were always going to be there, but she took different paths to get there. But we don't know what was gained and what was lost in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we're going to try to make the connection, because that's just what we're going to do. Like, that's the literary analysis of saying, okay, well, here's how this is going to get from here to there. But it's going to be very hard to not constantly think about the what if. Yeah. And saying like, okay, well, here's a clue that we think that's here. Maybe we see it in the third one. Maybe it could have gone in this direction. So I think that's going to add another layer to our analysis, which just makes it a more interesting season. Make sure you stick around for
more interesting or more frustrating for all involved. Who knows?
I don't see me being happy.
I see a lot of like on your part.
It's going to be very unfortunate that we're going to be recording together, because you're just going to be in the crossfires.
Yeah,
of this frustration.
I'm gonna get the brunt of it.
Yeah, you are. You're gonna send a message to SJM, be like, "Dear SJM, the abuse
I've ruined our friendship.
The abuse I've had to take because of you." Oh, a few aggressive pushes are gonna ruin our friendship. It's not directed at you.
I'm teasing.
I was about to say, you can take more.
I'm teasing. I'm sure there are many, many disgruntled husbands who have been.
You're my disgruntled husband.
I am your disgruntled husband.
This comes from R. Bryce is a terrible mate. Keeping Emil a secret from Hunt is Rhys/baby times 200.
Ah, interesting.
Rhys times baby.
Nix.
Oh, I was thinking Rune.
Oh, is Rune your baby?
He kind of is. No, that makes more sense. All right, let's get into this.
So, I understand the frustration, but I think we've talked about this a little bit in Earth and Blood, and it makes a lot more sense in Flame and Shadow because Bryce knows Hunt doesn't care about humans.
Yeah.
And we saw that in Earth and Blood. Yep. And so for Bryce to keep Emil's secret from Hunt is in character for her because she doesn't trust him to care for humans other than her, and she's not fully human, so she doesn't even count.
Yeah.
So I understand the frustration. I'm sure we will also be frustrated when we do some of this analysis.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's out of character.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be things that we're going to come up, be like, you could have done this, Bryce. You could have done this instead. Yeah. And that's just going to be a more of a critique on the character versus SJM, because it'll be like SJM is staying true to who Bryce is.
Right.
Whether this is worse than Rhys keeping the pregnancy a secret, I don't know.
No, because Hunt's life was not in danger.
Yeah.
The way that Feyre's life was in danger with Nix.
No, but I'm excited. Should we say the thing that we haven't officially announced? We'll officially announce it later, but we can say it now.
Sure.
Okay, I can edit all this out too, and we don't have to say it.
Sure. But you can say it. The honor and the privilege is yours.
Oh, let's say it together. No, we didn't rehearse it.
I don't know how we're gonna say it.
So
let's 1, 2, 3, and then we'll see how garbled it is.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. We'll be doing Silver Flames in January.
I was gonna say Silver Flames, January 2025.
Yes. So rather than going straight into Flame and Shadow will be doing Silver Flames.
After Sky and Breath.
Yes. So it actually is going to help also with this analysis, keeping that in mind that we're gonna have like a lot to keep in mind. Dear God.
Oh gosh.
We're gonna have
Good luck
I
to
know,
us.
right? We're gonna be like, okay, so we have this coming up and we have to think about this because
Yeah.
it's interesting that she compares that to Rhys because now I'm wondering
Mm-hmm.
how much is Bryce subtly compared to Rhys with her actions in How Sad.
I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I can definitely see it because if you think about Bryce's journey in Sky and Breath and Flame and Shadow,
Mhm.
how is she any different from Rhys in Wings and Ruin?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the answer is she's not. And I think on some level, that is why Rhys views Bryce
Mhm.
as such a threat in Flame and Shadow.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, they are very similar.
They're very similar, and at the same time, I think that they are also so different, but so some okay, yes. So here's where I think they're like I'm curious to talk this out with you.
Mm-hmm.
Rhys will do anything for Feyre, even hurt
Yeah.
her. He will
Mm-hmm.
do it all. Bryce will do anything to save the world, even hurt Hunt.
Yeah.
And I think that's where some of their tension comes in,
Mm-hmm.
where Bryce sees a bigger picture
Yeah.
that Rhys is aware of, but is willing to sacrifice for Feyre if the sacrifice is
Yeah.
needed. Like he'll
That's fair.
do everything he can to save his world. Like he was willing to
Yeah.
not help Bryce to save his world, but you can't tell me that his priority will always be Feyre first and, let the world be damned if it comes down to it.
Yeah. It's fair.
But the, manipulation, the conniving, all
The
that, the
lying or the
lying, the
withholding of
withholding.
truth.
Yeah. That's all Rhys and Bryce.
And you know what? They're both technically from the same Nightborn line.
You're right. They're family.
They're family. It makes sense.
It's just it runs in the family. It's a shitty family.
This is from T.
Ooh.
This might be unpopular, but I loved this book and them uncovering Danica's secrets. Loved the pace.
The Danica secret one in here is going to be, I think, a very controversial subject because it's both frustrating in how it just keeps going in Danica, and it's like,
Yeah.
here we are doing this all over again. Danica had more
Right.
secrets. However, does it make sense? It's also important to the story.
Right.
Like it adds that mystery that came from book 1.
Yeah.
And it also kind of has to be a conclusion to that journey too, because one of my initial thoughts when it came to Flame and Shadow, no, yeah, Flame and Shadow, SGM targeted me on this. When it came to Flame and Shadow, is that I was like, well, Danica's not related to this anymore. And that was hard for me because I was like, well, you just committed to a theme here that Danica was going to be a part of Bryce's story one way or another. You did it 1, you did it 2, and then we totally ditched that in 3. So what I'm looking for in 2 is a true conclusion that I just didn't pick up in my reads.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting take on it. I have not reread Sky and Breath since I've read Flame and Shadow. And I
Same.
think that the frustration I felt the first time I read Sky and Breath about the repetition of Danica's secrets, I think that that's going to go away given the context of Flame and Shadow.
Yeah.
Because, you said, Danica, the theme of Danica continues in Sky and Breath, and then she's gone in Flame and Shadow. What I think is happening is Danica's continued secrets set the foundation for Bryce to develop into who she becomes by the end of Sky Breath and pursue the path that she pursues in Flame and Shadow.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think Danica's secrets are ultimately the bridge between Earth and Blood and Flame and Shadow. And so I suspect we will be less frustrated by Danica's secrets in Sky and Breath because we will find the necessity of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've never doubted the necessity of it. I think it's just more, what am I trying to say? Themes. So,
Mm,
the necessity of it, like, plot-wise, absolutely. It is needed. We have to get there. It is what's going on. Theme-wise,
yeah,
that's where I start to kinda, like, lose a little bit with it because I'm like, "Okay, well, you're repeating a theme from book 1." I'm on board with that. I can do that.
yeah,
That's called writing, like,
yeah,
but I need a conclusion to this theme because
yeah,
otherwise it's just plot, and I struggle
yeah,
when things are done just for plot. I need it to be
yeah,
more. So, for development of Bryce, development of everything, those are just gonna be the things that I'm looking out for. I don't
yeah.
doubt it was done.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying though, because Bryce loses sight of Danica because of Prithian and the
Yeah.
Asteri.
Yep.
And I understand that loss and that emptiness
Yeah.
that might have been nice to have added of like, oh, Danica was right all along. Danica was
Mhm.
on to something. If only Danica could have come with me to Prithian. If
Yeah,
only,
yeah.
these things. And I don't remember that happening.
Yep, no, exactly. So which sense it doesn't happen, or at least not to my memory, because like the Danica of it all kind of comes back at the end of Flame and Shadow. So like it
Hmm.
comes at the very end, which is more of like, okay, well now you're just putting like a nice little ribbon and bow on it, which is needed.
Yeah, yeah,
But so like that's what I'm looking for in
yep,
Hosab when it comes to the Danica of it all.
yep. I agree.
All right, this one comes from L. Do not like Ethan's crush on Bryce. It just feels like an added layer of drama that adds nothing.
That's so funny because I actually liked
I know.
Ethan's crush on Bryce. I felt it was very realistic
Yeah.
for him to have a crush on his older brother's crush.
Yeah.
And maybe because I've seen that in my life before that I'm just like, "Oh no, it's actually kind of sweet and it makes sense why he would be so hurt by
Yeah,
her
yeah.
and her treatment of Connor." But also that hope that maybe things I don't know. I can see how other people might be finding it annoying as an added layer of drama, but I think it was necessary to explain Ethan's
Yeah.
character in Earth and Blood because we did not like him in Earth and Blood.
Yeah, we had to understand him. We had to justify his actions a little bit, or at least like, peel back the layers.
Yeah.
Here's where I think that people might get caught up in the frustration of it, because this is at least mine. Because I was okay with his crush, but at a certain point, we have Hunt hitting on Bryce. Obviously, he loves her. We have Ethan who has a crush on her. We have
Mm,
Therian who keeps making flirtatious comments. I think we even
mhm.
have one of Rune's friends. Like at a certain point, it was like, okay,
Yeah.
everyone loves Bryce here. Like
Right, right. Well, and Rune loves Bryce not romantically, but is very protective of
it
her,
just
and
was like
then
all about Bryce.
right, Cormac is promised to her. It's a reverse harem, and it was very Japanese manga of it.
Yeah, and I think like at a certain point, I don't like it when you have one girl and a bunch of guys, and it's I mean, like,
Mhm.
unless they're all screwing, then that's different, but, like, that's a reverse harem that we're okay with, but it gets very, like, "I'm just one of the guys," and there's, like
Mm,
we lose the female friendships in here.
yeah,
We lose the things that I always like. I wanna see community amongst women. I wanna see the importance of having other female friendships, and
yeah.
there's just, like I'm so sorry, listener, if you feel like this is me targeting you, but I remember growing up, like, especially around high school or college, whenever I'd meet someone that's like, they had no girlfriends. And it's like, okay, I was always like, is this circumstance or is it like, or is this a red flag? You know what I mean? And I'm like,
Mhm.
it was always like 50-50 for me, where I'm like, sometimes it happens and that's just what it is. And sometimes it's like a huge red flag. And I'm not saying that that's what was going on with Bryce. I'm just saying that my point of view, and when I approach it, when I see that, I'm always like, oh, it just leaves like a taste in my mouth that I'm never a fan of.
Yeah, and I can see how maybe the listener who left this comment might maybe feels the same,
Yeah.
right? Because adding Ethan to the mix of Hunt and Rune and Cormac
Therian.
and Therian, it's just it does add too much.
Yeah.
And I understand that. It is sad, and we did complain in Earth and Blood how Fury just is irrelevant the rest of the series, which we see here. Bryce burns bridges with Juniper.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there is a very and then she gets mad at Danica and all the secrets she keeps uncovering. So, there is a very distinct lack of female relationships, and I don't even remember seeing Ember that much.
No. And that's
So,
like a
it is
mother-daughter relationship that's just full of tension either, or as well.
right. And so it is a little frustrating to see those female relationships
Yeah.
go out the window.
Yeah, and that's always been one of my red flags when I read something. And it's just like, this is the Bryce show and everything's about Bryce and all the guys love Bryce. And again, I do love that. I love having this like curvy character that all the guys love, but it went too far, my opinion. And I can see where the Ethan crush just kind of adds to it. I would have kept
Yeah.
the Ethan crush. I would have removed some other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I honestly would have brought in God, what's his face, his little sister who ends up being Therion's.
Oh, yeah.
Flynn, yeah, his
Flynn's
little sister who ends up marrying Therion. I would have brought her in here.
Yeah.
If she was going to play a role like that, bring her in here, make her prickly, make her whatever. Just something because then when we get her, it was just kind of like where did you come from? Who are you? Now we have backstory. So that's another thing that I'm wondering, like, was that part of the first draft? Like, was that something that came up, or was that actually planned, or something that just happened as she was writing? Because that would have been a great one to get more screen time with her in here.
Yeah, I agree. This next comment comes from Jay. The end with Hunt was heartbreaking, especially the Halo and Rune saying bye to Bryce. I will agree. I mean, SJM knows how to tug at our heartstrings. She knows how to make us hurt, and she did do that in this book at the end.
It's great. I love it. Everything now when I read a book that just like does something to me emotionally like that, I texted Amy this where I was like, I'm screaming, "Fuck me up, Florida," like Taylor Swift's song Florida, where it's just like I'm like, yes, fuck me up, Florida, like fuck me up, SJM, like I love it, like make this heartbreaking and traumatic and hurt everyone here. SJM does pain well.
She does when she wants to cause it, and I think that it is another way of getting us to come back for the third book. It's not just the Prithian cliffhanger. It is, wait, what just happened to Hunt and Rune?
Yeah, like now they're gone. Now they're being tortured. Like, oh my God, Hunt getting his halo put back on it wrecked me. That was so sad. And God, it just left too much room for theories, the gap in between. Because I just think about all the theories that we had, with the Halo, where it's like, no, he's going to betray Bryce, and now he's going to do all this stuff, and like the Halo didn't really matter in this third book. He broke it. Like that was kind of his own journey.
Right. Which maybe that's all it needed to be.
But then it's just like when you think about the giant cliffhanger. Did my face? Is that what you're?
Yeah. The look of disdain on your face, like.
Now that we're on camera, I'm gonna have to go back and look at it because I never know what my face does. But it's then like, why'd you make it so dramatic then? If it's just gonna be that in the third book, like
to make sure that we came back for the third book.
Yeah, I know. I have words. You know what? We're gonna read one that just made us giggle. Amy, do you mind reading that?
Sure. This is from, technically the handle is M,
but we know who you are.
But I know who you are, and the first name is E. I was kind of pissed it was just Regulus all along. It felt disingenuous. Also, Cormac lives. I mean, likely not, but in my heart, he and Nesta have a little flingy. I'm also drunk, so never mind.
So honest. I love it.
Love it.
You know what? Let's live in that narrative. I love that. Someone also mentions that Bryce and Hunt are funny together and just happy to see them all cute. Like, there's going to be cute moments with them. There's going to be fun little bits of tension. I know we were kind of saying that it's not enough tension, but don't get me wrong, I'm going to eat up what we get. And I reserve the right to change my mind for later.
Don't record this and play it back later. I got nothing.
Oh, what you were saying? Yeah, and I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I do really enjoy the fact that they are friends and that you get to see them be friends. Like, I have a distinct memory of them at the end of a training scene in the gym with everybody, and they're like, Bryce makes a joke that everyone thinks is tasteless, but Hunt gets it and they both high five. And I'm just like, yeah, I understand.
Yeah. I do. Their relationship, which was so fun and unique in book 1, really flourishes in book 2. And, it kind of makes Bryce's betrayal hurt even more because they're just so stinking cute.
Yeah, it's true.
But, I'm excited to have those little moments. And their spicy scene. I am excited to talk about that.
Although we did have someone say that their spicy scene was way too over the top.
It is, though. Like, it really is. If you go into outer space every time.
Time and space.
If like, maybe I've just never had that.
But I think it's also a hint to more about Bryce and her powers and what happens in Flame and Shadow. So I see how it's necessary, but when you have it out of context of Flame and Shadow, it is kind of like, what the hell is going on?
But then, like, even with Flame and Shadow, when it happens again, where it's just like, oh my god, keep your, like, I don't know, wear a strap. Like, stay in bed somehow. Like, someone use handcuffs. Like, do what you gotta do, but, some person who's, like, trying to admire the stars with their little telescope doesn't need to see that. More link to her and Reese. They like screwing in the sky.
There you go.
Again, I never have, so
what can you say?
What can I say? Someone get wings.
Come find me.
Come find me. This last comment comes from G. Great ending, but awfully long and convoluted way to get there. And it reminds me of another comment that someone said that that SJM could remove 200 to 250 pages.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the first time with this book, I listened to it because I was trying to speed through it to get to the big reveal at the end so that I couldn't be spoiled. And I remember tuning out during all of Rigelus's, like, monologue at the end and all of his explanation. And I was just like, why is this taking so long?
Let's get through it. I need to know.
Yeah, why? It felt very telling and not showing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I understand at some points you just need someone to explain what's going on. However, I felt like more of the clues could have been peppered in along the way. And maybe they are. Maybe I was just ignorant of them at the time.
Yeah, that's for us to figure out. And if there's anything that SJM has proved, she doesn't waste space.
Right.
That's how we felt going into Earth and Blood, that it was big and there was a lot of things happening and it just kind of, again, meandered. That was another word that was used to describe Sky and Breath. Earth and Blood. God, that was another used word to describe Earth and Blood. But, we realized at the end that nothing was wasted. Every little sentence, every chapter mattered. And this is just going to have to be, this is me having faith in SJM that's what we're going to end up seeing again.
Yep. Yep. Until we start the analysis, I just have to trust that we're going to see stuff we didn't see before.
Yep. Because that's her. That's our SJM.
She's sneaky.
She's a sneaky. She's a snake. She's a sneaky snake.
What is that from? You say it all the time.
Have you ever seen that? It was like early YouTube days, I think. Like, I'm a snake. I'm a sneaky snake.
No.
All right, well, I'll have to, hold on. Let me just, give me one quick moment.
I'm a snake. I'm a snake. I'm a snake. I'm a slither little sneaky snake. I'm so slither and sneaky because I'm a snake.
I'm a snake. I'm a slippery little snake.
Thank you for the context.
Yeah, it was like early YouTube days. It's so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
You're, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This talk about an episode someone should actually watch. They should watch the YouTube on this one. I feel like that's
this episode.
Yeah, it cracks me up. We're hilarious.
We are funny
to ourselves. I don't know if anyone else agrees, but
thank you for listening to this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk. We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. Next week, we will be discussing Nalini Singh's Angel's Blood.
We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. If you would like to submit your take on any of the books we plan to discuss later this summer, please be sure to follow us on Instagram, where we ask for listener submissions.
If you are enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon, Ko-Fi, or Venmo. You can also follow us on TikTok or Instagram at the handle booktalkforbooktalk.
Bye.
Bye. That was a little worse.
I'm like trying to bye. Why is it that I can have a conversation with you and be normal, but the second we're talking here, I get dizzy?
I do too. I think it's the lights.
Maybe, yeah.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.